Welcome to the Awaken Heart Podcast. I'm your host, Nancy Walters. Get ready to create magic and miracles as you lean into your heart's desires. I believe not only does the heart want what it wants, but it knows. This show is a weekly deep dive into what it means to live from an awakened heart. I'll be sharing inspiring stories and real conversations with people just like you, who have turned the ordinary into the extraordinary. My mission is to show you how you too can be connected and heart-centered in every area of your life. Your journey to aligning with more love, more joy, and your wildest dreams come true starts now. Hello, everyone. I am back. I know it's been a minute since I have been on here. I had a little bit of traveling that took place in the last month. I went back home to Michigan to visit my family. My mom, she's got the beginnings of Alzheimer's, and my dad is like 93 years old, and I went back home to help my sisters clean out the house because nobody's really been in there since the whole COVID thing happened. So they've been in their house. It's almost like an episode of Hoarders, but to like the 10th degree, like not as bad. But the kitchen and the bathrooms were horrific. And my sisters and I cleaned in there. We got another friend in there to scrub and clean. We threw away without prejudice, like literally stuff that, might have been from 1984, some of the food items. And I had my sisters to laugh with as we were doing that. So went home and took care of that, and then also took a trip up north with my friend who's back in Michigan for now. So we got to go up to the beautiful Great Lakes of Michigan, and because my parents were teachers, we spent a lot of time camping during the summer. So I went back and visited a lot of places that had really fond memories from my youth, and ended up at Ludington State Park, which is on the western part of the state along Lake Michigan, and went camping there, kind of like just threw a tent in the car and winged it. And it ended up being awesome. We ended up adding 2 more days. It was just what I needed to just really relax and unwind and connect with nature. And then I just got back from Arizona over Labor Day to visit another friend out there. And that was great because reconnected with friends, drank, ate a lot of crap, laid around, was in the pool. It was super humid. I think they had record monsoons, like the most rain since 1905. So literally the mosquitoes were rampantly out, and it was very humid. But anyway, it was a great visit. So now I'm back, and this is part 4 of the relationship series. So I have a very special guest with us today. As you've seen, we've kind of gone through some of the gamuts to get yourself ready for love. And we started with the breakup, which is ground zero. And then how do you prepare yourself for really big love? And also went on to online dating, what the red flags are and what to look for. And here's an interesting story. I gave my friend, Sunday we had a barbecue at my friend's house in Arizona, and I gave her my phone to kind of scroll through to see maybe there'd be some different options that came up. Sometimes friends see things that you don't see. And she kind of swiped without prejudice, but I got so many matches. And when I went through them, and most of them were very viable matches, it was pretty insane. I think I had probably had 50 matches, and I conversed with probably 48 of them. And what's interesting is the Tinder, how I had mentioned before, how Tinder, a lot of times they'll just sit at the top and not interact with you. I probably had 20 guys that dropped right down and interacted with me. So I hope to bring that kind of luck out here in Oregon, because I'd really like to meet somebody out here, because I think it's beautiful here. I really do enjoy living here. It would be so nice to spend the winter with someone. But it's interesting, I've given myself limits too. If I don't meet someone in the next couple months, maybe I have to move myself to another area that might garner different results, maybe different quality of man. Maybe I'm supposed to be somewhere else. Who knows? But anyway, it was just interesting to see how different it was from here. So maybe I'll bring that magic back here and I'll report back to you what I discover. So today's guest, we have Phyllis King. So Phyllis King has worked with thousands of people in 30 countries. She is known for her practical and down-to-earth approach. She has been featured on ABC, CBS, and NBC TV, radio programs across the US, the UK, and Europe. She has been published in over 100 print and online publications. She has 4 books, including Bouncing Back, Thriving in Changing Times with the late Dr. Wayne Dyer. Her latest book, The Energy of Abundance, Practical Advice and Spiritual Wisdom to Achieve Anything in Life, is available in bookstores now. Phyllis holds a BA in sociology. She has just created this great course that has garnered a lot of success from her clients and her students. And it's a comprehensive 8-week live recorded class which details how to attract your next soul partner. This course will answer every question you have about attracting love to what we get wrong in the matching game. The course will help you become magnetic to love. And she has a digital download, which I will put in the show notes. And she's also got this incredible radio program, Common Sense Psychic, because she is psychic and intuitive. So tune in and listen to this great wrap up in the relationship series and how to attract that soul partner. Here she is, Phyllis King. Hey, Phyllis, welcome to the Awakened Heart Podcast. I'm so excited to have you on here.
I'm so excited to be here. It's wonderful to anytime I can be with you.
I love it. You're such an amazing woman. And I'm so excited that I got to meet you. And we got put in touch by our good friend, Alexia Miloki, another friend maker there. She's wonderful. And so when I moved to Portland, you and I got together and I had first moved here and I was so in love with where I was. And we connected through there and we've gotten to meet up a couple times. And I got to take your wonderful course, one of your wonderful courses. It was like building your psychic intuition, I think it was.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
God, that's been a while.
Yeah.
I think a couple of years.
Yeah, it's been like a year and a half. So that really helped out a lot. And I love what you're doing. Like you have the show, The Common Sense Psychic, and I just recently listened to an episode and you were so on point and it really resonated to where I am right now. It was about down to earth spiritual dialogue with callers and your guests. And it was all about what is happening right now and how you are approaching it by your own mindset. And it really resonates where I am right now.
Oh.
Yeah. And then I know that you're doing the whole program on calling in your soulmate, your soul partner. And I love that because I've done some earlier episodes recently about dating, getting yourself ready for dating and codependency and preparing yourself, not just for an ordinary love or just the regular love or the run of mill, but something that's extraordinary and something a lot of people usually, you wait for it and you prepare yourself for it. So I'd love to go into that. But first of all, I'd love for you to kind of give a little bit of your background and how you came into choosing this. I know you're really lit up and excited to offer this kind of thing for your clients and your students.
Yes. Well, everything always connects itself, as you know, but I thought that 2021, first of all, was going to be defined by love, in part because of COVID, that we've all been locked up, locked down, and unable to connect and, forced into, lockdown, essentially. And it was just going to be a side effect that we were going to just want to become tribal, get out there, mingle, make love happen. And it really puts a different perspective on time and what matters and what's important. And people became very aware of loneliness and being by themselves and what matters. And there's an urgency has started to build in people to come together. So I thought, what better time than to generate a class around calling in your next soul partner. And I did it in such a way where I synthesized information from a class I've taught about 22, 23 times by a friend of mine named Catherine Woodward Thomas, who wrote a book, Calling in the One. And that was an extraordinary experience. But because I am an intuitive and a psychic, and I've been a coach for many, many years. I synthesized my information with those experiences and calling in the one, and came up with calling in your soul partner, and put together this 8-week module that really walks through all the steps that I've seen through the class and just with my clients. And it does pull in that piece of the intuition and what it's like to be a psychic, and bring that into the process, and it just gives another dimension to it that I think some courses don't have. And that's just my contribution to people's journey to try and bring love into their life.
And everybody wants love. And
You do.
yes.
Me too. I think so much. I want love forever.
Yeah.
And we go after it. And I think when we're younger, it's less conscious, but there's so much enthusiasm, and we just kind of go at it, and things happen, and we learn from it. And then as we become more conscious and aware, then we, it's like, well, I know what I need and want now. Now, how do I actually attract it and bring it in? And so it becomes a different process. And I think that's difficult for some of us to metabolize. And a lot of times I hear, why do I have to do all this personal work? It used to be so easy. And so I try and answer some of those questions in the course.
Sounds wonderful. And before we dive more into soulmate and some of the things that you teach in your course, let's walk it back a little bit to, you're intuitive and you're psychic, and you've helped so many people in that way. How did you first become aware that you were maybe a little different, or maybe that you had a little more intuitive insight? How did that come about, and how long ago?
It started, believe it or not, right around 5 is my first memories. I started to have experiences where there would be formless white shapes around me, moving around, kind of frightening, actually. I didn't really talk about it because I was raised in a somewhat religious family, and those things weren't spoken about. And I don't know that even if you are non-religious, those things are spoken about. And then in elementary school, I started having experiences, some people would call them out of body or even remote viewing, where I could be in a location, other people would be in another. I would know verbatim what they were talking about or what they were eating. It was really, that didn't scare me, but it started to make past, present, future kind of all come together, the now we all talk about. And then by the time I was a teenager, I started having a lot of precognitive experiences, mostly through dream state. I'd have a dream, I'd wake up, within 24 to 48 hours, it would happen, usually around something negative or hard, like a death or an accident or something. And none of these things really got my attention until I was about 18. And a friend of mine in my circle of friends, we weren't super tight, but he passed away in a car accident. And about 3 months after he passed, he showed up in my house looking like a person. Scared me to death. I mean, I was frightened and my heart is pounding. But at the same time, I had an awareness. It was just in me. Oh, life doesn't end with the body. But it was at that point, I'm like, okay, what is this stuff? What does it mean about me, God, life? And then what do I do with it? How do I make it stop happening to me? And I want to get on the front side. So I wasn't thinking about, oh, I'm going to be a psychic, I'm going to do readings. It was more like, how do I get a handle on this? And that's really where the journey began.
So you decided not to be scared anymore and really look into it, because a lot of people are frightened by it and they don't want to say anything and they just deny it, but it's really a gift. And you decided to delve into your gift. Did you have anyone that helped you cultivate it? Because I know sometimes there's mentors that help you bring it about.
And I would say to this day, I'm still scared of it. Because I went after it in lots of classes, lots of mentors. I went to the Berkeley Psychic Institute for 4 years. That was one part of my journey. But I was actively seeking out experiences, and I had a lot of them. And some of them really frightened me a lot. And so I thought, okay, enough experiences. I get it. It's real. There's an intangible reality. And I decided I made a pact between myself and divine. I'll do this work in some way, but I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to do that. And so I kind of learned how to put it in a box that works for me, which ultimately turned into intuitive coaching, because I just found that people need to have their whys filled in, not just this is going to happen, that's not going to happen. But yes, I still have a voracious appetite for spiritual information. I still take classes. I still mentor. I have 2 mentors as of now. I mean, I have my own full client roster, but I'm still a student. So.
So important to have those mentors around you. And speaking of intuition, like I kept seeing your name, Phyllis, intuition. And I love this because I want to be able to tie like intuition into dating, because it's so important. That's what you've had to do, is be able to trust your intuition. And because you get all these messages and you have to learn to discern, and, whatever's in your gut and whatever's in your body, whatever's true. And it's so important for us as women, especially, to be able to trust our intuition. A lot of times we don't listen to it. We deny it, or we've got this knot in our throat or this kick in our stomach. And then if we don't listen to it, it's a cosmic 2x4. So how can women relate to their intuition, or what are some of the signs to look for when it comes to dating or deciding if this person is for us?
Well, that's a great question, because there's so many layers to it. I would say that I think motivation, what's driving us and why we want a partner, how we're selecting a partner, what we think is true about partnership is always important. We need a baseline to go in, because so often I think when we aren't trusting our intuition, we're afraid of something. We don't want to believe the truth about something, or we're so motivated by some pattern or belief that's false that it pushes us past our intuition. So, I mean, we're talking about doing personal work, but we do need a clear baseline of who we are, what we want, and what we believe. And then we're more apt to lean into our intuition and not ignore it. And, I think women in general, we're always told, oh, well, you're so sensitive, or, you talk too much, or whatever it is. And so we do try and small ourselves down, I think, a lot, to be what we think other people want us to be. And that's all of that whole fear, that whole dimension and spectrum of fear, and being afraid what's going to happen if we show ourselves or show up in full force. So I guess the baseline, and I think when you have the baseline of your beliefs, what you want and what you're motivated by, you're much more likely to lean into your intuition and let it guide you.
Because you're learning to trust yourself, and yourself.
That's it. That is it. I can trust myself.
And we talk so much about self-love and how important that is, because you're loving yourself through your mistakes, and you're so aware of yourself, and you're so accepting. So from that center, you're more apt to listen to those little nudges and intuitions, because you're gonna believe it more.
Yeah, and it just seems like so many women were trained to be there for others. And of course, this is historic.
Yeah.
We bring that history forward, but we know how to be there for others. We nurture like crazy, and, we want to help, and we want to make it better. And we want to give. And in that, sometimes we cross the line, and we go beyond what we should be giving and doing. And, it just gets a little bit convoluted about what the right amount of giving and offering up is. But when we just stand steadfast in our power as a feminine being, we're so much more magnetic, we're so much more attractive, and it becomes easier to not only listen to the intuition, but enjoy the process of being out there and exploring connections.
And I think, like you had said, a generational thing. So back in the day, we listened more to our intuition. We were more in community with each other, and we were intuitive amongst each other, and we learned to trust it. And we were sages and wise women. And I think as we got into the more modern era, we were taught not to listen to that. Oh, be nice, or be a good girl, or like, oh, you start to not trust what you're being given. And I think we're in this age where we're returning to being more feminine, going back to our divine nature. And, because there was the 70s where the feminist movement, and, we could be just like men and we're just trying to be equal like men. Now we're kind of dropping back into that beautiful, flowy, intuitive, feminine part of ourselves. So it's a really good time for us as women to like be back to our true selves.
I
So,
love that. That's
yeah.
such a beautiful statement. And it's true. And I think it even goes back further, like when birth control came
Mhm.
about, suddenly in the 50s, we could have sex and not worry about getting pregnant. It's like, whoa. And that, I mean, that just changed the whole landscape of what our relationships could look like and catapulted us into what you described, and to we're just like men. And now we do get to have our power but still be feminine.
Mhm.
And so that's sort of the new landscape we're all trying to master and embrace. And I think we're seeing a lot more of it, seeing a lot more of that come about. And that's that, to me, that's the ticket. That's the best of all, where everybody gets to stand in their power, men, women, and everyone in between who has a different identity, and you can still run that feminine or masculine energy, and there's no right or wrong about it.
Hmm. Because it's feminine, masculine energy. So if you're trying to be the man, like a lot of us women, we have a lot of masculine, we've got both inside of us. But as women, we're more feminine, and allowing that in more will help the polarity and the attraction. But so many women, I have a lot of masculine qualities because I take care of myself 100%. Everything I do is reliant on myself. So we have to have a job, we have to pay the bills. A lot of women are, the caretakers, and they're taking care of the children, they're taking care of the husband and getting things done. But I think returning to a baseline is, sitting back, expansive, open. Because if you think about receiving, because women receive, it's just kind of like, you think about your heart open and your arms back. So that might be a good way to just drop into the feminine right away, is just open the heart and open the arms. And, you're receiving at that point. So many of us are giving, giving, giving. We're taught to do that. So maybe that is one of the really big key steps. Starting from that, becoming more feminine, being more open and receptive. What are some of the key principles for attracting a soulmate?
Well, and before I jump into that, I'll just tell you
Mm-hmm.
on your point about that. In my personal life, I actually go by my middle name, which is Marie.
Mm.
As in my professional life, it's Phyllis King, and Phyllis King is everywhere, conquering mountains and taking down monsters, you know. And I'm really running a lot of masculine energy. And if I bring that into my personal space, who's going to want to be with that, right? So, but Marie, she doesn't have anything to do with Phyllis King being
Mm.
out here in the world conquering mountains. And so, but for me, it's more of like, oh, I'm consciously stepping into this other part of
Mhm.
myself that's not making things happen, not taking charge. Um, so I
I
just wanted
like
to
that.
say that as you were talking, because I had
I,
a conversation with a client this morning about, yeah, I really need to learn how to bring my feminine in because I'm always taking, fixing, making it happen. I'm like, yeah.
mhm. I love that because that's such a easy, it's like Beyonce, she's Sasha Fierce when she comes on a stage. And it's such a tangible thing because you're actually stepping into it. Like, I should go by Louise. I'm Louise, because then you're mentally stepping into it. It's an easier thing to do.
Well, now back to the class, and thank you for asking about it
Mhm.
again, because I'm very excited about it. And that I had about 20 fabulous women in the class. Actually, there was one man as well. Uh, and they really participated in a great way. So when you participate with the class, you're going to get to hear all the questions and the feedback and the things that people went through. And they were so forthcoming, which made it really juicy. But my approach is really to come at it from all the angles of, let's do the historical piece. Let's satisfy the mind so we can quiet our mind's point of view about what's happening and get really real about what we're dealing with historically and present time and where we want to go. And then I deal with the emotional piece. How do we get right with ourselves and learn to be honest with ourselves? And then the piece that I bring to all my work, whether it's abundance training or love, it's how do you identify the energies that you are basking in and that you're projecting? And I have a whole spectrum that I teach people about correlation between like at the bottom of the scale, we have anger and violence, and then we have the mid-range, which is apathy and boredom, and then at the top we have enthusiasm and joy. And these are all frequencies. And if we know where we're vibrating in a spectrum, we can say, oh, well, I'm self-deprecating right now. Where does that really fit in an energy frequency? Is that a high or low? And we start to think about how we're showing up energetically. And so I teach that part as well. So I think once we have all of our pieces on the table, the emotional piece, the historical piece, the intellectual piece, and the energy piece, then we can start to set intention and say, what do I actually want? What's actually going to feed me? And what do I have to contribute? And how do I match? And it becomes more of a learning experience and a self-awareness experience as opposed to trial and error. And you enjoy the process much more. So that's not exactly the steps because it is 8 modules that have many pieces, but that's the overall template that we work within to get you to the finish line.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, working on self and work. It's a vibration. It's a frequency. So if you're resonating on anger or you're hurt or you're desperate or needy, that's what you're going to resonate. So it's working on that frequency and vibration is so important. Like one of the most important things, we don't even realize it because so much of what we are is not just this physical body. It's an energetic.
And exactly. And we have to slow it down because we think, oh, I'm being needy. How do I stop being needy? Well, why are you needy to begin with? How did that pattern create itself? And you have to deconstruct it to a certain degree so it's not activated or as active, or that it's something you could manage in the context of how you show up. And I guess the basis of most of my work is you have to be in an inward level. Your inner world has to be in a better condition. So people who come to my class, my goal is to get them to up level at least one notch. You don't have to change everything. You don't have to become like just Beyonce overnight. Essentially you just have to pick one thing and be able to expand that. And if you could just change one element and expand your being in some way, your consciousness, your mindset, your emotionality, whatever, one piece and really shift that, you're going to change what comes to you. And so when I come at it from all these different ways in the class, people are going to, one way or another, somebody's going to get something out of it and shift. And that will change their experience moving forward. And, and I give a lot of practices. I always end each module with a set of affirmations for that week to work on one aspect of how you think about things. And then there's different meditations and energy exercises and a lot of practices in this class. And I took that model a little bit from Catherine Woodward Thomas's book. She has a lot of exercises in there. Mine are very different, and they are, oh my goodness, my cat. Mine are very different. But it's the same concept and a little bit more fun. Catherine's work is very intense. Mine is more, let's have fun with this and look at the energy of something.
Yeah. And that was such a great book. And I did that whole book 7 years ago.
Yes. Well, it's a great book.
It's so good. 7 years ago. And I still we had talked earlier before we started recording, just, there's certain obstacles that I find, and I've talked about this in my podcast, to finding love. And I'm always willing to work through whatever it is that might be blocking me. And I went through a lot of work after my last breakup. There's always something else, mine just might be a little minuscule thing that I'm not aware of. And it probably is something that I'm not mentally aware of. So with that being said, what are some of the obstacles that you find your clients have in regards to finding that love or within themselves that's, that they might not even be seeing?
I think that, and I would include myself in this to a certain extent, but I think that we get fixed. We have an idea that we believe is true. And it actually isn't, but we believe it. And we've identified with an idea, and that idea is guiding us. So let me think of someone from a class who said something. I just remember I had a woman in the class And we kind of got into it in the class. And I'm advocating for people. I don't fight with people, but I advocate for their best interests. But she had a point of view about what's possible and laying down certain deal breakers and such. And I was trying to help her see how she's actually putting up an impediment and sort of judging before someone actually even came in. And then, we kind of went round and round about it for a minute until she finally went, oh, wow, I never thought of it in that way. So I think that the beliefs we hold about what is true and necessary that's often the culprit. And then if we've been doing it a long time, we don't even realize we're doing it. It's really quite remarkable. So I'd say that's one of them, these identification points we have that this is true when it actually isn't, but we believe it is. Or that we're just so afraid and we think that no one's going to care about us, or we can't do it, we're not good enough, or something's lacking. I need to lose 10 more pounds, or I need to dye my hair blonde, or I need to be 15 years younger. We tell ourselves these diminishing ideas, and then how do we expect to have confidence to put ourselves out there and attract? So I think that's the second one. And then I think there's a fatigue level that I see in people. They don't have.
That would be me.
They just don't, they're worn out. What they've been doing hasn't been getting them results. And they feel like I've been showing up, I've been doing the work, but nothing's connecting. They're not getting enough incentive to keep going. And so they're right at that, I just want to give up. And so I'd say those are the top three I see. And they all have different origins, and they're interesting and fun to deconstruct, but you can't get past them if you're willing to just dive into that and really keep going deeper with it.
So I know a lot of women, including myself, that have done the work, that have read the books, that took time out for themselves, put themselves out of dating, and then just, they're comfortable being alone. They have a nice spiritual practice. They love their life. There's just that one thing missing. And there's a lot of great women I know out there that haven't found a partner, or they're just not matching up with anyone. So how much is that? Do you think there's like that one little piece that you think is missing, or that one thing that they don't see within themselves? Is it divine timing? And how important is divine timing?
Wow. Well, it's going to be for each person, it'll be individual in terms of the first part of your question, because I think we're doing more than just our own life. This is going to get real woo-woo here, so just hang on. But I think we're working many dimensions at once, and the choices we make and the thoughts we think and the behaviors and actions we take affect many different levels. This is my point of view. And so our life is not just about what we see in front of us in terms of, oh, I want a relationship, or I want this career to happen. We're communicating on all these different levels that we may not even have an awareness about. So, and our path may be requiring something other from us than being in a relationship, if you will. And I don't see not having a relationship as something being missing. And I don't think you do either, even though it came out of your mouth. I think we decide at some point, I think I'd prefer a partner right now. I don't want a companion. And we're tribal by nature. We want to be around people. And that actually piggybacks to the first part of my question, that there is a divine timing, and it's not that something is necessarily wrong, but we're developing some other part of ourselves, or staying in a situation because we're really trying to learn something or grab something from the experience, or it's pushing us to a point where we'll have clarity about what our next steps are. And, I see this a lot with people in career as well. I can think of a client right now who's very accomplished and really been trying to make something happen in her career space, but it's not happening. And so slowly but surely her bank account's dwindling, and she has to think about maybe selling her house and this and that. And I think the universe has a way of, I don't want to say squeezing us, but putting the dots real close together. And sometimes it happens through exhaustion. It happens through, I'm out of choices. And so I think that is part of divine timing if we're not seeing, if it's not becoming clear. And some powerful women, I know smart women especially, I love powerful, smart women. They're my favorite, but sometimes we're our own worst enemy, and because we're too smart, and we defer to the mind's point of view as opposed to a higher wisdom. And it's tough to surrender to that, especially if you have years of investment and a point of view. And I know this one too well, but yeah. But yes, divine timing, I believe, is
Mm-hmm.
perfect, and we have to keep looking for what's the answer. I mean, what am I missing? And we'll keep going into it layer after layer, and we'll figure it out. And sometimes it's just about pushing past a level of discomfort about things. I was adamantly opposed to dating for many years. I was just like, don't want to do it. Don't want to do it. And then finally, when I just sort of had a come to Jesus moment with myself, well, you just want to sit at home all the time? I mean, you just want to, is this what you want to do? You don't even, not even going to get in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of made myself, because like if you're going to make yourself exercise or eat properly or whatever you're going to do, I'm just going to make myself. And so I made myself because I thought it was good for me. It was taking my medicine. And it got easier. So I think that ability to self-motivate, that was my point in that
Mm-hmm.
comment.
Mm. Yeah. And you're like, you motivated. So how important is, okay, so we take action. Of course, we have to like sweep our home and like get our house ready, which is, ourselves, and clear out all the cobwebs and make ourselves available. So after we've done all that, how important is it like to surrender and allow or have non-attachment, but yet still taking action? What is the balance between those two?
It's based upon how you feel, actually. Are you frenetic about it? Are you enjoying the process? Or is it work? I mean, I think how you feel is always the barometer of
Mm-hmm.
which direction you need to go. And so if you're stressed out about it, or things aren't working, or you just can't figure out what's next and you're verklempt, then you got to figure out how to.
About it.
Yeah,
Talk
exactly.
amongst yourself. I'm sorry. That was from, what was that from? Oh, Saturday Night Live, I think.
Talk amongst yourself.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, so it's when it doesn't feel good anymore what you're doing, and you don't see a purpose, and you're like, I need to just surrender to this moment
Mm-hmm.
and either begin again at some point, or try and metabolize whatever information was to be gained from that experience.
Mm-hmm. And I've always heard that you become that which you wish to receive. So if you want love, you become the love. If you want to attract somebody that has that loves their life, like love your life. If you want someone generous, you become generous. You give before you receive. So it's an action of already having or already doing, because you're being it before you receive it.
I couldn't agree more with that. And on the flip side of that coin, if you're receiving what you don't like, or if you're receiving things that, it has these things, but not that, and these are the deal breakers, then that's sort of the food for thought. What's inside of me that's attracting these things?
Mm-hmm.
Unavailable, or whatever the thing is that you're getting, not you in particular, but the collective you. That's how I've worked it. What inside of me is attracting that? I've got to heal or look at that piece.
Mm-hmm.
And just because we're evolved, just because we heal, doesn't mean we may not still attract people that require a level of discernment. Is this person right for me? And I think on that other side of that topic is, human beings have a point of view that relationships are supposed to last a lifetime, or that has to look and be a certain way. They're not all meant. Some of them are meant to be 3 months or 6 months
Mm-hmm.
or 4 years, and that's what they're supposed to be. And that was the purpose they served in their life. Nothing was wrong. That you came into this lifetime to have a certain type of experience and to be a certain way. And relationships play a different kind of role. Just like women who have kids or don't have kids. They have a point of view like one's better than the other. And it actually isn't. Some people just aren't meant to go that path. And I think the same thing is true in relationships. We're going to have certain experiences for what we came here to learn and become and be. Doesn't mean you can't do any of those things, have a child or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you can change the relationship pattern, so long as you're willing to adjust your expectations and really consider what matters to you, and adjust the criteria. And yeah, it's all out there. But human beings are, I'm not going to say the F word, I was going to. Human
You can.
beings are effing flawed, and
Yeah.
we all come to these experiences, especially post 40. Midlife dating is woo.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, because you know yourself better, but then you come forward and all your stuff that's not resolved, it turns up real quick.
Mm-hmm.
You'll come together and it'll be like kismet. Oh
Mm-hmm.
my God, my soulmate. And then 3 weeks later, oh, you're an a-hole. It's like, oh my God. We do something I call bumping against the wounding, and it comes up much further post 40. And so we got to have a lot of stamina to be able to not be rattled by people's stuff, and everybody comes forward with it. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's the good news, bad news for post 40 dating.
Yeah. And you don't have to be perfect. Like, you don't have to work on yourself so much that you're this perfect person in order to attract that person, because it might be something with them. They might not be ready. Maybe they're still married, or maybe they're in the middle of a divorce, or they've got things to work on within themselves before they can come to you. So it's not always you, but as long as you've done the work already. But I know a lot of people, I see it happen a lot, where they just literally broke up with someone, their heart is hurting, and they're on to the next person. Well, you're going to keep attracting the same old person. And there was just somebody that I just met recently, and her heart was aching for somebody who just, literally dumped her. And then she's on a date later. It was a bad date. I'm like, what are you doing going on a date? Like, how would you feel if it was reversed and you were into this guy and you showed up on this date and you weren't available because you're still pining over your ex? So they're trying to fill that void that this person left them. And it's literally a physical it's not just physical. It's just not that space. It's a chemical detox, especially in the very beginning. You're detoxing from all those chemicals. So how important is it to heal from past lovers? Like, especially in the beginning, you need to, but then there's someone that's resonating, like cutting the cord. Some people can't let them go. So, I
It's so, the reason I'm laughing, Nancy, is because I married the same person twice.
oh boy.
I've been married twice, and it wasn't the same person, but it was the same issues.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was like, oh, the marriage didn't work because that person was this way and that way and this way and that way. Yes, that person was this way and that way and this way and that way, but I picked them. And so as long as I was projecting that it was his fault, I didn't have to attend to my own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided to get married again. Funny, the same kind of issues coming up, but this time they were worse.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until that one where I'm like, I picked him, what's going on in me? And that's when my relationship cycle finally turned around, and I started to attract better and just have much better experiences. But I think it's a stimulation. I think none of us want to feel pain. We don't want to feel that awful crap that's in us. It's like, so what's the easiest thing to do? Go date somebody, go jump into something else, and you get that euphoria that's always at the beginning, and have sex with a new person and have the fantasies start rolling full tilt, and you're like, this is great. And then you hit the wounding and it's all over
Mm-hmm.
again. But it's really stimulation, and then I don't have to feel.
Mm-hmm.
You could do alcohol, you could do drugs, whatever, do relationships.
Yeah, it's distraction, and it's distraction from the pain. And the only way I found is to go through it, to go through the other side, work it all out, because emotions stay in the body, and it stays in it stays in your cells, it stays in your cellular memory. So until you work that out, it's still stuck. So you can go on to another relationship, but I always like wherever you go, there you are. It's still there. Still there. You have to work through that stuff.
100%, 100%.
And people don't want to do that because it's, like you said, is dirty work, is not feel good. It's painful. It's like, but then all of a sudden you're through the other side.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, there's the sun.
And I don't know about you with people you've coached or whatnot, but people in my world, so when you're in it, we're in it, I'm in it. It's like, it feels like it's going to be forever.
Mm-hmm.
And it won't. You are moving through it, but it's real easy to think, I'll I'll just take a detour for a minute. This is too hard.
Mm-hmm.
But if you stay with it, you do get through it.
Mm-hmm. Because it's like, it feels like death. So, oh my gosh, I've been through it. It just feels like a literal death. It is a literal death because a part of you has died with that person, but another part of you is reborn because of it. Like you take everything you've learned, you become this like more self-aware, this because you've gone through that hell and that pain, you've come out the other side. It's like, woo, picture like the woman walking through the flames and like the phoenix rising, like we rise from the ashes and we become better because of it. And therefore we can attract better partners because of that. And things that we might have missed or looked over before, or ways that we might have betrayed ourselves, we're not doing anymore. We're seeing the red flags, we're adhering to them, and we know our value and we're standing firmly in that. And it's the foundation that we bring to the next relationship.
Well, and to that point, which you said so beautifully, in my first person experience, when I finally started really doing the work and seeing my unavailability, suddenly it made crystal clear sense why I was being with people who could not be present for me. I was doing it on purpose. I was setting it up so people couldn't hurt me. I wasn't available, so I got people who weren't. But then when I flipped that script and I turned it around, suddenly people were showing up that were available and could really honor me in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's worth it. It's worth it to do the work, even when it's not fun.
Yeah, it's not
It's a good
fun.
investment in ourselves.
It's the most important investment in ourselves. Like, yeah, it's so important, like sanity's sake. Yeah, I've loved our conversation. Before we wrap up, I'd love to hear what is the definition of a soulmate or your soul partner? And how is that different? We always hear about the twin flame phenomena. How is that different?
Well, for me, a soul partner is someone who comes and matches you where you are for this cycle of your life. That
Mm-hmm.
you've evolved, you've grown in totality, and you are now at XYZ level. And now you're going to pull in someone who matches where you are. So, my first husband matched who I was back then. My second husband matched who I was, and my subsequent partners matched who I was, and my current partner matches who I am right now. To me, that's a soul partner. That's something that's to us to help us become our best selves and help us grow in that moment. Now, in terms of, I do think we have mates that are set up before we come into the lifetime. And often when I'm looking at people's love lives, even couples have been married 30, 40 years, they may still have mates out there because they don't want to do the lifetime without a partner. So they're going to be mated one way or the other. So a partner dies and 6 months later they have a new spouse, right?
Mm.
So there's mates, there's soulmates, which soul agreements, and then you're talking about twin flame, which I have a lot of mixed feelings about that word.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, I think of it more of on an ethereal level, that yes, we do have connections out there in other realities that really are very tight and close to who we are. Will we experience that while we're in the body? I don't tend to think so. So I'm not a big twin flame, it's out there in
Mm-hmm.
human experience point of view. Doesn't mean I'm correct, but that's my point of view.
Mm. Yeah, I've always heard about the running or I've heard so many different things about it. It's interesting, but it's like, I don't know how true the twin flame phenomena is, but, I don't think people should give up their whole love life, holding to that, like, oh, the twin flame, he's not my twin flame thing, and give people chances and opportunities.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, Phyllis, I know you have this course coming up. I would love for you to let the listeners know how to get in touch with you for this course and when the next one's going to launch.
Well, thank you. Of course, the best way is to find me at my website, which is my name, Phyllis King, Phyllis King.com. And actually, that course is in editing as we speak.
Oh, great.
I think it should be out the 1st of July. If you want to advance order, you can. Yeah, it's available. You can always find me on Facebook, on YouTube. I'm all over the place. I'm getting ready to launch on TikTok, but my website's the best way. And yeah, I think anybody who wants to dig deeper into their love process and think how they can move it up a notch to attract someone different would really enjoy this course. And again, because the people who participated really gave it their all. There was some juicy stuff in there because people really came. When it comes to love, people are serious. They're paying attention. They're engaged. They're involved. They're putting it all out there because they want to figure it out. And so the people who participated in the class did an awesome job as well.
What are some of the success stories through the students that you recently taught?
Well, most people that I'm with that I've taught are dating. I would say in that class, probably half of them are currently dating, and they have a viable partner, and they're working through their issues to see if that's going to continue on. The people who aren't dating, they're still working their issues through. They're still working through their processes. But I have lots of clients who've gotten married, lots of clients who have found people. It's very possible to do, no matter who you are or what your condition is or what your situation is. I don't want to say condition like it's diseased if you don't have a partner.
Disease. Oh my God, I'm a pariah.
It's not, it's just we're learning, we're growing.
Exactly. And what is one key takeaway or something that our listeners can implement today to help them with their love life or to help them call in that partner that they've been longing for?
Well, I have to say, being able to visualize and imagine what you want on a feeling level, and even on the physical attributes, that I know for a lot of my clients, we'll talk and work things through. They do a vision board, boom, things start happening. I don't think vision boards are be all end all, but I think that ability to really believe and feel that it's out there is so important. A lot of times people come and I'm like, I don't think she's out there. I'm just whatever. So you have to really generate that. You know what? I think they're out there. And this is how it could potentially look and feel. And I think if you do that, you're 10 steps ahead of everybody else in trying to attract someone.
That's a good key point. It's the feeling place that magnetizes and manifests and attracts, because
absolutely.
Yeah. So feel it. Feel as if it's already here, and picture that. So one more question. I always ask all my guests this. What does it mean for you to live from an awakened heart?
For me, it would be staying conscious, every day to the best of my ability, not falling asleep and not, I guess I'm saying a lot of nots, but it's not going back to that place where I didn't think possibility existed, and really staying the opposite of being asleep, actually on purpose, staying awake, being conscious, being present, showing up, no matter how difficult it may be, and continuing to put yourself out there and engage with life.
Being awake and conscious, the earmarks of finding that soul partner, and being awakened heart. That's what it means. Well, thank you, Phyllis. I appreciate you coming on so much. Everybody, I hope you go to her site. I'll put everything on the show notes. Sign up for that course. It's so great to have love, and like real love in our world right now. And, if you got love for yourself, why do it alone? Call in that partner. Thank you so much, Phyllis.
Thanks, Nancy. It's great to always be with you.
Thanks so much. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Awakened Heart Podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, share it with a friend. And if you haven't already, head on over to your favorite podcast app to subscribe, rate, and review. If you have any comments, questions, or feedback, you can reach me at theawakenedheartpodcast.com.